Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to host your very own ChatGPT clone for free using Open Web UI. You heard that right. Your very own AI web interface with most of the features you love from ChatGPT. But that's not all. Stick around because I am also going to walk you through how to integrate Open Web UI with n8n workflows. I hope you're excited, so let's get started. The official website for Open Web UI is openwebui.com. If you click on this docs link, it will take you to another page where you can explore more about the Open Web UI. For example, a quick start guide is under Getting Started link. Advanced configuration or documentation for further clarification can also be found within these links. If I click on quick start link, you can see the Open Web UI we can run in Docker container. That's exactly what we will do. We will run the Open Web UI in Docker container along with our self-hosted n8n and Llama containers. So make sure you have this setup already configured. If you have not done so, I will highly recommend that you watch my other videos from the same playlist in which I thoroughly explained everything. If in case you are just interested in running the Open Web UI without n8n integration, you can still have it running using OpenAI models, but of course it will not be a free solution. We will not simply copy and paste these commands. Instead, we will use Docker Compose to create a compose file in YML format, and then we will run the Open Web UI container out of that particular file. Before we do that, let me show you how does my environment look like in Docker Desktop, including the configured networks. You should have something similar running if you have been following along in my tutorial series. Here we have the containers running under self-hosted AI starter kit. You should have Llama running as part of it. For me, Llama is running outside because in my previous video I was showing you guys how you can host Llama independently, not as a part of self-hosted AI starter kit. Here we have the images and volumes. The networks are not listed, which we can list using our terminal application, or in case of Windows, you can open the command prompt. I am using MOBA X terminal. You can use command prompt as well and just simply type docker network ls, press the enter key. This will show you the currently configured networks within Docker desktop environment. One particular network from this list we are interested is this self-hosted AI starter kit. If we inspect the self-hosted AI starter kit demo network using Docker network inspect and then the ID of this network, you can see our n8n, Llama, Quadrant and PostgreSQL, all these containers are associated with this network. We would like to utilize the same network for the connectivity sake, because as I have pointed out several times in my other videos, each Docker container is supposed to run in isolated environment with its own resources unless it is told to share them. So if you don't define a network, usually Docker engine will try to attach the default bridge network to newly created container. In our case, to keep things consistent and simpler, we will use the same network to connect these different services even though they are running independently. Now let's start configuring the Open Web UI container. In my downloads folder, I have created another folder and named it Open Web UI. If in case you are using the Windows, you can simply go to the downloads folder or any location where you want to host the Open Web UI folder, create a new folder and then create a new file called dockercompose.yml. In my case, I'm using Visual Studio Code editors, so I can simply type code dockercompose.yml, which will create a file called dockercompose.yml, and then it will open with the VS Code at the same time as soon as I press the enter key. You can see we have the dockercompose.yml file opened in here, which is empty at the moment. In order to save some time, I will quickly paste the code in here and then I will walk you through what this code is exactly doing. Okay, so I have pasted the code in here. Let's minimize this and I will quickly walk you through what we are exactly doing. Under the dockercompose.yml, we are telling the Docker engine to create a new service called Open Web UI. For this service, ignore this section for a moment. We want that this service should be using Open Web UI volume, and then under the network section, we have self-hosted AI starter kit demo network, which we saw previously in the command prompt when we listed all available networks. This flag in here, external true, means this is the external network out of control from this service, which means it's a pre-existing network. If you don't define external true in this composition file, it will actually create a new network called self-hosted AI starter kit demo, but it will have a prefix called Open Web UI underscore. We don't want to do that, so we will use our existing network because our other services are utilizing the same network. If I expand this Open Web UI section, you can see we have a bunch of options given in here. The Open Web UI is the container name. The image, it will use the Open Web UI main image. The port section maps your local host port to the port within the container. So let's say if you put the local host colon 3001, that port will be redirected to port 8080 within the Open Web UI container, which in turn will show you the web interface. Under the network section, we are mapping self-hosted AI starter kit demo, which we defined here at the bottom. For the volumes, we are telling this container will utilize this particular volume. Again, we already defined this volume in here. This app backend data is actually a mount point within the container. This deploy section is only optional and it is necessary if in case you have NVIDIA GPUs. In my case, I do have NVIDIA GPU and I will be utilizing this section. If in case it's not provided, Open Web UI will start using the default CPU in your computer. Don't worry about this environment web UI auth false. I will explain it why I have commented it out later. But for now, that's all we need, and then we can save this file. Back in the terminal, if I type ls, you can see I have docker compose.yml file in here. Now we can actually run our Open Web UI container by typing docker compose up -d. Let's press the enter key. And you can see the volume was created, the container was also created and then started at this point. Now this process was really quick for me because I had already downloaded the Open Web UI image behind the scene, which is almost about 6 GB of the size. In order to save some time, I found that it will be much more easier to pre-download the image. Let's bring our Docker desktop application forward and see if we have the container already running. Back in Docker desktop, you can see we have Open Web UI service listed, and then there's Open Web UI-1 container running in here. The port, we mapped it to 3001 to container port 8080. If I select this container, click on this inspect, and then we select the networks, you can see it is actually using self-hosted AI starter kit demo network, which was pre-existing network. We can also verify this by going to our command prompt or the terminal application and then type here docker network ls. This will give us the name of the network and the ID. We will use this ID to see which containers are utilizing this network with the docker network inspect and then the network ID. Here you can see the first container, the name of the service and the container, which is actually using 172.18.06 IP address. Next, we will actually log in into the Open Web UI interface. Let's go back to our containers. In order to log into Open Web UI container, you can click on this link, which will take you to http://localhost and port 3001. Which in turn should take you to get started with Open Web UI page. Do keep in mind that you will have to fill up the information in here, name, email and password, but this sign up process is not associated with the Open Web UI website itself. All these credentials are locally stored, so feel free to enter any information. Let me quickly fill up the details. Let's click on create admin account. And here we are already in the Open Web UI interface, so click on this OK, let's go. This interface should look familiar to you if you have been using the ChatGPT. Now if you're wondering where did this Gemma 2 latest come from, you might not have it if in case you were running some other models. Let me navigate you through few of the settings and then we will talk about how it got the models available in our system. If you click on these three lines in here, this will open the side menu. Then at the account you configured, you can go to settings page. These are the settings where you can choose some general UI related settings, for example, theme from white to dark color. The interface settings, there are the default UI settings again regarding your chat bubble, and then title auto generation. You can go through them one by one. Do remember that the Open Web UI has also capability to show you the voice chat features. So basically you can press the voice button on the chat, which I will show you in a second, and then you can ask questions. Further down in the settings, there is a admin settings page. You can click on it, and if you go to the connections, you can see the Open Web UI. It picked up our Olama instance running locally on our Docker host, which you can see in here. It's running under Docker host and utilizing the same network, and then port 11434. So all these models you were seeing earlier on the home page, they were being served by our local hosted Olama instance. If in case you don't have the Olama instance running locally, you can actually add the OpenAI API key in here. Anytime you make a call to that API key, you will be charged some amount by the OpenAI. I will highly recommend that you use the Olama self-hosted solution, which I already have explained in my previous video. Under the models, you will see whatever the models we have downloaded using our Olama instance. You can also verify them by going to the Docker desktop, click on this Olama instance, then click on this exec, and then here we can type Olama ls. You can see we have three models. One of them is embedding text model, and the other two are the actual models, which are AI text generators. And this is what we were seeing on the Open Web UI's homepage, Gemma 2 by default. Okay, let's go back to our Open Web UI interface. Here you don't have to do much. Under documents, you can upload documents directly to your AI agents. It will allow you to chat with your documents similar to RAG AI agents, which we previously configured in n8n. It reminds me, if you haven't checked that video out yet, I will highly suggest that you watch that video, because we will be integrating that particular workflow to this Open Web UI. Under images, if you are using the OpenAI API key, you can provide it in here, so you can actually generate images through chat as well. Let's click on this pencil icon and then start a new chat here, because we are using our self-hosted Olama solution, which is serving Gemma 2 latest model. We can ask any question. Let's say we can say, tell me fun fact, and then you can click on this send message. If I bring the task manager, you can see our GPU was actually touched really high. This is because we have configured our Open Web UI and then Olama chat models to use the GPU. This also confirms that our Open Web UI is running locally, which is utilizing the NVIDIA GPU. And in return, it actually gave us some sort of fun fact. You can ask any question. For example, our favorite question, why is the sky blue? Gemma 2 is giving us the answers. This was a pretty simple Open UI setup. You did not have to do much apart from making sure that your Olama instance is self-hosted and it is up and running serving the models. You're not just here for that. Next, I will show you how can we integrate this Open Web UI interface with our n8n workflows. Before I actually show you that, I wanted to point out one more thing. If you go to this workspace icon in here, you will see a bunch of options available. Under the models, there's a discover a model URL. If you click on it, it will take you to another web page, which is actually a community web page served by openwebui.com. Here you can see some of the Open Web UI community models. All these models, they are not one size fit all, so based on your need, you can go through them and then explore them if you need. You can also filter the models based on the name or the type, for example, functions or tools. We will come back to this page in a minute when we will configure this Open Web UI to our n8n workflows. So let's keep this page open for now and then head back to Open Web UI. Next thing, I wanted to show you this knowledge link in here. Under this knowledge button, if you click on this plus icon, you can upload any items similar to the items you will provide to the RAG AI agent. And then by using a hash prompt, you will be able to chat with your documents. This prompt section, it allows you to add pre-configured prompts. For example, if you click on this plus button, you can type the command, Let's say we want to say summarize, and then what would be the prompt content. Let's say we type the prompt content, write a brief summary about topic in brackets, and then under the title I will put the same title as well. Click on save and create. If we go back to our chat here, if you type / you see the prompt which we created is pre-populated for you. So if you just select that, it will write the prompt in front of it, and then all you have to do is just provide the topic. So let's say I would say Ubuntu firewall. Since we had no limit on the summarization, it actually came up with the best result it could to summarize the UFW. You can also modify the limit on the summarization by going to the prompts, like again editing it, and then say write a brief summary about the topic in 50 words, for example. Save and create, and then we go back. Here we can type summarize. Ubuntu firewall, and then you can see the result is much more shorter. So this prompt section, it actually helps you to create as many as prompts you want if you are working with some similar use cases. We will not be exploring the tools section, but these tools are also available on the Open WebUI community web page if in case you want to search something. Okay, enough talk. Now let's configure our n8n workflow with this Open WebUI. Now one question you may ask is, why would you want to configure your Open WebUI to your n8n workflows? The answer is very simple. As you can see, if you have been using the ChatGPT, OpenWebUI is just a replica of ChatGPT. This is just a fancy interface in front of your self-hosted Llama models. As I have explained this earlier in my previous videos as well, the Llama models are only as good as the information they were trained on. In this case, if you are configuring OpenWebUI, it does not have any information to the external resources. For example, your Google Drive files, your emails, or if in case you're running a business, it doesn't have any information to the available hours of operations kind of things, like a company knowledge base you can think of. In our n8n workflow, we will continue using our pre-existing workflow. The procedure to configure your Open WebUI to your n8n workflow will remain the same regardless of whatever workflow you're using. In order to continue from where we left off previously, instead of creating a brand new workflow from scratch, it will be easier for me to explain you to configure the Open WebUI with this complex n8n workflow. If in case you haven't watched this video, I will highly suggest that you have a working instance of this n8n workflow, and then we will continue building from here by integrating this workflow to our Open WebUI. Whatever your customers were able to ask from the external website using this n8n workflow, your internal staff will be able to retrieve the same information by using Open WebUI interface which we just configured. Let me quickly show you how this workflow works. So if I click on this chat button, here we had the fictional restaurant called Flavor Fusion, and then what we are looking for is asking for the hours of operation for our restaurant. Here I'm using OpenAI chat model, but you can also use self-hosted Llama chat models, which will in turn talk to our vector store to grab the information about opening hours. If you have watched the previous video, you can see we changed our hours of operation from 12 p.m. to midnight, Monday through Sunday, which is returned exactly the way they were supposed to be. Now let me show you what happens without any integration. If we go to Open WebUI and then open a new chat in here and type what are the hours of operation for Flavor Fusion. Since there is no connection between Flavor Fusion and then Open WebUI as expected, the answer is returned, I do not have access to the real-time information. And this was the reason which I explained earlier. If you want to have some sort of internal knowledge base for yourself or for your clients, they can utilize the Open WebUI along with other amazing tools available out there. In our case, we want to utilize our n8n. Okay, so in order to integrate Open WebUI, we will head back to this models page. Here in the search bar, we will type n8n and ensure that we are looking for a function. press the enter key. Somebody in the community has already created this n8n pipe, which is actually a helpful Python function which help you to create Open WebUI integrations with your n8n. Let's click on it. There are two ways you can integrate this into your Open WebUI. Either you can simply click on this get button. If in case you're running Open WebUI in a different port, this function will not work. By default, the Open WebUI uses port 3000. But if you remember, in our Docker Compose file, we have used port 3001. So instead of using this get button, I will simply copy this code and then we will manually paste it in Open WebUI. Once the code is copied, go back to Open WebUI. Open this side panel where it says your username. Go to admin panel. Click on this functions button. Here click on this plus button to add a new function and then delete whatever we have and paste the new values which we copied from that pipe. Here the function name is important, so I will just type n8n pipe. Similarly, we need the description of this function as well and click on save. It's just the confirmation dialog, so click on confirm and the function is created successfully. Right now it's offline. Which means it's disabled at the moment. We will enable it, but before we enable it, we need to configure these valves. Let's see what do we have if we click on this valves icon. And then here you have a bunch of values which you can provide as the configuration parameters. The important one in here is the n8n URL. This is the URL where your n8n workflow server is running. If you notice, there's a pointer called n8n.yourdomain.com and then /webhook. I haven't covered the webhooks until now in my previous tutorial series. Basically, webhook is some sort of a hook provided on the internet which listens for events on that particular address, which we will configure in the moment, and you will have more clarification. So as soon as there is something coming to that particular address which we configured, will respond to that address based on further instructions we have configured it to do something. In our case, our n8n workflow is running locally in the same Docker container, and since it's not available from the outside world, what we will do is we will not use this URL, which is yourdomain.com. I will show you how to configure this n8n URL in a moment, because we will have to also prepare our n8n workflow so the Open WebUI can actually reach out to that workflow using the webhook. Let's not put anything in here for now. We can cancel it and then we will go back to our n8n workflow to configure the webhook. In the n8n workflow, let's cancel this chat which I showed you just to confirm our current workflow is working without any issue. So close this and click on this plus icon. We will type webhook, select that. As you can see, we have a webhook available in here. We will connect this webhook to our same AI agent, because what we want is anytime any question is asked about Flavor Fusion from the Open WebUI, this webhook in turn will be triggered, which will actually use our AI agent, and then further AI agent will use our database to get the accurate information. Let's open the properties of this webhook. You can see the webhook has test URL and production URL, which we can utilize if in case our application is in production. We will be using production URL. The type of the webhook, we want to change it from get to post. This will ensure that whatever the information is received from other endpoint, it will actually post that similar request to our AI agent, which in turn will interpret the input. This path is crucial. Instead of giving these weird numbers, I will change it to Flavor Fusion, which is similar to our restaurant name, and you can see the post request URL has been also changed, so it became localhost 5678 /webhook, and Flavor Fusion is the name of the webhook which will be triggered with the post HTTP method type. We do not need any authentication or anything, but under the respond, we don't want it to respond immediately. Instead, we will choose using respond to webhook node. As soon as you select that, you can see it says insert a respond to webhook node to control when and how to respond. So basically, in simple words, what it is saying is whenever an input is provided through a webhook, there should be a respond to webhook widget associated, which should be the last widget in order to actually finish this workflow. So click on this plus icon in here, and then here we can search for respond to webhook. We do not have to change anything in the settings. All we want is whatever is received from the node, just respond, including the first incoming item. That's pretty much it. You will not see any difference in here. Let's actually open the webhook properties. Select the production URL and then copy this value of our webhook. Let's go to Open WebUI interface. Click on this valves setting again under n8n URL. Let's delete this portion and then paste our copied value, which is webhook flavor fusion. As I said earlier, because our AI instance is running locally, we will not be using this portion, so simply delete it and then type here :5678. Click on the save button. The valve operated successfully. Let's close this. Let's enable this pipeline and then initiate a new chat. Here, as you can see, our models has been changed to n8n pipe instead of the JAMA or other models previously configured. Let's ask the similar question about the hours of operation and then click on send message. You can see we have some sort of error in here, and I deliberately produced this error. I did not want to give you a finished product. Instead, I wanted to show you there are some challenges which may occur in real life scenarios. Let's figure out what could be the issue. If you understand the flow, our OpenWeb UI is actually calling our webhook configured in the n8n, which is at port 5678. Let's find out if our values in the n8n pipeline is correct or not. So go back to admin panel in here, go to functions, click on this settings icon. Then first thing I noticed is we have HTTPS configured instead of HTTP. So I will change that and then click on save. Let's start a new chat. Let's ask the same question. Click on the send button. And here now we have different error message. Initially it was the connection issue. Looks like right now it is not the connection issue. Instead there's some sequence execution error. Let's troubleshoot that by going to n8n. You can see nothing is triggered in here, but that is not true. As I have explained earlier, that whatever interaction to your AI agent happen through third-party resources, for example webhook, or in case of our customer facing website, those logs are under actually execution button in here. Let's click on it, and here you can see on 30 December we have the node failed. If I click on this error, you can see the error is reported by our AI agent. So double click on it, and then you can see it says the AI agent did not actually receive any prompt. The reason behind it is, if you noticed in our previous workflow, we were telling our AI agent to take the values whatever is provided by the previous node. In our case it was the chat input. Out of that chat input we were extracting its value. So whatever the question was asked by the user, we were extracting that value and then passing it to that AI agent so it can respond. If you expand this value under webhook, you can see we have a similar field called chat input as shown in here. Chat input, I can zoom and then you can see clearly. So chat input is given, but whenever this chat input is received via webhook, it is not directly received as a JSON.chat input. Instead, that webhook has headers, which you see we have the post value and other values given in here. There is a field called body. So whenever the webhook is sending the user's input as a whatever user has asked the question, it is actually included under body and then under chat input. So how can we fix it? Let's go back to our editor. Click on this editor button. Let's open the properties of AI agent. Instead of taking the input from previous node directly, we would like to define a particular input. Select this field and then click on define below. Here select this expression, and then you can click on this window to maximize it. If you remember, our JSON response is coming under body, and then body has this chat input. Previously, we were simply capturing the JSON.chat input, but our webhook is sending a field called body.chat input. Let's close this and then get out of this as well. Let's go back to our OpenWeb UI, copy this question, initiate a new chat. Actually, before we do that, let's save our workflow, deactivate it, and then reactivate it. Go back to our OpenWeb UI, ask the same question, and hopefully this time our workflow will work. As you can see, the Flavor Fusion opened from these hours. The response is returned correctly, and we can verify it by going to the execution tab, and then the last execution was succeeded. We still have one problem even though the execution is successful. If you notice, we have fixed the input given to this AI agent by providing a different field which is not part of your standard chat messages. We can test this by clicking on this chat button. Then here now if I ask the same question, what are the hours of operation? At the enter key, you can see we have error as the AI agent is complaining I do not have any prompt received. Before we actually fix it, let's see where the problem is. You can confirm when the chat message was sent asking what are the hours of operation. If I click on this JSON field, you can see chat input is directly sent to the AI agent instead of encapsulating under body. The way we have told our AI agent that anytime you will receive input from anyone, that will be in a form of body.chat input. But in our case, it's just a chat input. The fix is pretty simple. So all we have to do is in here, whenever the user is sending an input, we want to ensure that the input is captured in certain variable which has type of body.chat input. In order to fix it, we can add a set node, which is this edit fields node. Now we do not have any data, so let's actually execute our chat message again and then ask it the same question, which will error out. Here we can open the properties of edit fields. Right now we want to capture the chat input, but we want to store it under body.chat input. Basically what we are doing is we are cheating kind of thing. If you notice, if I click on the test step, you can see our response originally was actually JSON.chat input, but once we encapsulated that chat input under body.chat input, now we have a JSON schema under body and then chat input, which is similar to what we are telling our AI agent you will be getting. At this point, let's reset our chat and then ask it the same question again. As you can see, the workflow is actually running in the background, and then we have the answer. Right now we have tightened our validation for our AI agent, and it will ensure that our customers from the customer facing website can ask the same question without breaking up our entire flow. And also our internal staff using OpenWeb UI can ask the questions to our AI agent knowledge base. Our workflow is only limited currently to the knowledge base retrieved from the Supabase vector store. However, you can make this workflow as complex as you want. For example, doing some reservations for the restaurant, or maybe sending multiple emails to staffs or reminding the reservations to the customers, etc. Let's go back to our OpenWeb UI and then ask another question just to verify that our workflow is working. Let's see if we have anything about butter chicken price. And there you go. I didn't know we had a FAQ uploaded in the knowledge base about butter chicken price. So it says the price of the butter chicken at Flavor Fusion is $9.99. As you can see, the response is pretty accurate and then particular to the Flavor Fusion restaurant only. The OpenWeb UI is talking to n8n workflow, and then our models are not just making up the information, instead providing us the real and accurate information. One more thing I wanted to show you guys is if you click on this settings for the chat controls, this will open up some advanced settings related to your OI model. You can use these different settings to tweak your response provided by the chat model served by Ollama. One of the most used is the temperature, which is basically the randomness in the response provided by the Ollama chat model. If in case you do not want your chat models to hallucinate the information, such as make up any information even if it doesn't have the correct and accurate knowledge, you can reduce this number to minimum to ensure that the AI agent always tries to respond with the best and accurate information which it has. Another thing you can do is, if you open up the admin panel from here, go to settings, you can actually enable the new signups for your organization or for your customers if they are willing to onboard multiple users. Do keep in mind that many users, if they sign up and then they are logged in at the same time using your AI models, depending on the piece of hardware you have, the performance of this OpenWeb UI or n8n workflow, especially if they are hosted on the same computer, will be really slow. Instead, what you can do is you can go to this users tab and then click on this add user plus button and then add one or two users manually. Notice that this also gives you a CSV import button in which you can upload a CSV custom file to upload hundreds or thousands of users at once. I'm just gonna cancel it. Going back to the settings, you can see we have the web search option as well. This is really important if in case you want to have the accurate information over the web. You can see from the list of available engines which you can use to get the accurate information. These engines, they need the API keys, which might not necessarily be free, or they might have some limitation of the free uses. And that's it for today's video. I hope you found this step-by-step guide on installing OpenWeb UI and integrating it with n8n helpful. Whether you're automating workflows for personal use or creating professional solutions, this combination is powerful and opens up a lot of possibilities. Especially it is a well-known cost-saving solution where you do not have to pay for every single call when using the bigger vendor players' API keys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials just like this. Don't forget to click on that bell icon so you get notified every time I upload a new content. If you have any questions or ideas, drop the comments in the comment section below and I would like to hear from you. And of course, if you are experimenting with OpenWeb UI and n8n, feel free to share your creative workflows or challenges that could inspire others in the community. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video. Until then, happy automating.